Hey, so I wanted to go into more sort of tips and suggestions for really being able to maintain that weight loss long term, but also kind of focusing on something that's a concern or an issue more early post-op as well. And that is the intake of what I have affectionately called the crispy, crunchy carbs. So this is like, crackers, chips, pretzels, granola bars could be in this, the cookies, all of those carbs that are pretty quickly broken down, kind of digest really fast, tend to sort of skyrocket your blood sugar, especially if you have diabetes, obviously, but really they kind of skyrocket everybody's blood sugar. You don't have to have diabetes for that to happen. And sort of why it's an issue, because a lot of times initially after surgery, people will have a lot of intolerances with foods, specifically those more kind of whole food based items that I specifically am often recommending, right? So like, lean meats, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, whole grains. It can be hard to tolerate those after surgery because your stomach has to work a lot harder to break them down, right? Whereas a handful of potato chips or a couple crackers go down really well. And people get frustrated and confused why maybe they can't have some chicken, but they can eat a handful of chips just fine. And so part of that is, and I kind of made a visual here for you, is this. So this is sort of how your stomach acts, especially after surgery. So this is my take on a funnel. Clearly I'm not a professional artist, but this is sort of how your stomach acts all the time. But I think this is a really good visual to see after surgery because your funnel, your stomach is a lot smaller. And so when you can kind of visualize that, I think it's easier to kind of realize why it can't hold as much. Maybe I'll do a different visual on this in another video I'll post later. But anything that can go through a funnel really easily after it's been chewed up and spit out, and that's kind of a gross concept to think about, but anything like that will also go through your stomach very easily. So I always encourage my patients to think about having a handful of potato chips, or just a potato chip, right? Put it on your tongue and let it sit there. It's going to start to disintegrate after 10, 15, 20 seconds, right? A minute of a single chip sitting on your tongue, it's going to be almost nothing by the end of it. Whereas a bite of a carrot or a bite of chicken, and just put it on your tongue and don't chew it, don't do anything, just let it sit there, it's pretty much going to look the same, right? And so that is going to stick with you longer in your stomach. Unfortunately, early post-op, it might be a little bit more difficult to tolerate. But those chips, those crackers, they'll go through really, really fast, okay? And it's not going to help you stay full. It's not going to help you stay satisfied. It's just that initial sort of craving or that hit, right? So that's where you really, really do want to be cautious. I kind of drew, I'm not sure if you can read that pancreas over here. It's probably going to be flipped because of the screen. But the issue with this is when you eat those crispy, crunchy carbs, they go into your intestine, and then your pancreas notices this, right? Notices all of these simple sugars, simple carbohydrates, and it tends to increase your insulin if your pancreas is working normally. And what can happen is too much sometimes of that carbohydrate can be pulled into your cells. And that can in turn, one, cause weight gain, and two, make you hungrier then. So a lot of times people say, oh, I had, chips as a snack, but then I was even hungrier an hour later, right? But this time you're like ravenously hungry. And that's part of that reason is it's not slow food, right? It's fast food. And that's where we kind of want to focus into having more of that whole food based approach. But again, if you're earlier post-op, it's a little bit trickier. It does get easier, but that's where, if you send me a message with specific foods that you're struggling with, I can give you some tips and suggestions on things that might specifically work for you, because that is such an individual thing that some people, can do eggs, but they can't do chicken. And some people are vice versa. Some people can't do any meat, but they can do, cheese or nuts or seeds or beans. So it's a process, right? Anyways, I hope that helps, and I hope that kind of explains why those crispy, crunchy carbs, especially when it's a habitual thing that you're doing is such an issue with being able to maintain that weight loss.